Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another XX Network tutorial. This is Cryptowell, and today we're going to be discussing multi-signature wallets, also known as multisig. First, I'll give a simple explanation as to what a multisig is, of course, and then a few examples of how they can get used, along with a basic diagram that'll show a simple multisig scenario. Next, I'll transition into the XX Explorer accounts page to give you a live example of how to create a three-party multisig with a two-party threshold. Finally, I'll execute a multisig transaction process. If at any point you want to jump ahead to another section, you can check the description for the timestamps and go to where you want to go. So without further ado, here I have a quick explanation of what a multi-signature wallet is and what it can do, and then I give a couple of use cases. So here we go. Multi-signature wallets, or multi-sig for short, are cryptocurrency wallets that require two or more private keys to sign and send a transaction. The storage method requires multiple cryptographic signatures, which are private keys' unique fingerprint to access the wallet. When it gets properly used, the multi-sig wallet can mitigate the hazards of dealing with digital currency assets, where, as we know, they're irreversible. So some example use cases would be account security and redundancy. So in the case of the tragedy of Quadriga CX, the owner actually died, and he was the only one within that company that held the private keys for about $115 million worth of digital assets of its users. They still have not been able to recover them because he was the only one that held the keys, and he didn't have any redundancies set up in order to deal with a situation like this. So that's a really sad event. Another situation would be maybe trust issues within a business, or in another way to put it, not having to trust because you create a multi-signature transaction process using multisig. So that's the scenario that will be shown when I go to the Explorer page. There will be three parties, and I will quickly show a diagram of what that will look like. Okay, so this is the diagram showing the scenario I'm going to create within the Explorer. We've got Bob, Wendy, and Wendy's grandma. They've started a business and they want to have some trusted transactions take place where if a transaction is going to be executed, you have to have two out of the three parties sign the transaction. So this is how it will work. And I have some notes here, obviously. It works like this. Bob, Wendy, and Wendy's grandma set up a multi-signature crypto wallet where each of them holds one key and two of the three keys must be present to send a transaction. To make a payment, Bob would create a transaction and sign it with his key. He would then send this transaction to Wendy, who would also sign it with her key. From here, Wendy can either send it back to Bob to finalize the transaction or send it to Wendy's grandma for her to sign it. Although the last step is not necessary, considering only two of the three keys are needed to unlock the wallet because it was created with a two-party threshold, as noted up here. So now I'm going to move into the Explorer page to actually show you how this works in real time. Okay, so here we are in the Accounts tab of Bob the Builder. So he's going to be the originator of the multisig wallet account, and then he is going to inform his business partners, in this case it'll be Wendy and Wendy's grandma, about the fact that he has created this multisig wallet, and then they will have to go ahead and add that wallet to their accounts at their separate locations, obviously. So when I do this, we're assuming that there's three separate people. They all have their own computers with their own accounts in their browser, and they have to add this wallet that Bob the Builder created already. So I will show you how Bob made the original account, and then we'll jump over to the other accounts to show you how Wendy and Wendy's grandma would add that account to their browser account. So first, what you would do if this account didn't already exist is Bob would go up and click on the Add Multisig tab, and then that would bring up this page, right? So he has Wendy and Wendy's grandma in his address book on the accounts page, which under the accounts tab, you have the address book. And you can add people to your address book either by them sending you their address in whatever way they like, or they could be found on the blockchain by going to the network staking area, let's say, and you could look them up if they had a identity that you could find. In this case, we already have their identities added to the address book. So when he created a multi-sig address in his accounts page, they were already in this available signatories box, right? So Bob chose himself and Wendy's grandma, and these are the people that are part of that multi-signature wallet. Okay. He then created a threshold. That means the amount of people that are needed in order to execute a multi-signature transaction. Needs 2 out of the 3 people. And then he named the multisig wallet what he wanted to name it, and hit create, and that will pop up in your accounts page. Now that he's done that, he goes and tells Wendy and Wendy's grandma what he's done and that he wants them to add this account to their page. So assuming that Wendy and Wendy's grandma have the addresses of the other parties, and the other parties, in this case, it would be Wendy, she would simply go to the multi-sig addition area, and she would add the 3 people again. So Wendy, Bob, and Wendy's grandma. Then she would match the threshold, and I would say name it the exact same thing. And this will take some coordination between the 3 parties to do this properly. And then she would hit create, and that account would pop up in her accounts page. Now I'll show you, I'm going to do the same thing for Wendy's grandma. She also has added it to her screen by doing the exact same thing. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now, assuming that everybody in this party has created the multisig wallet on their accounts page, now we can go ahead and make a transaction. There are a few things that are going on here. When we want to make a transaction, you have to fund the account first. So I went ahead, obviously, and had Bob send some funds into the Bob and Wendy Building Company multi-signature account. It has some coins in there now, and we want to make a transaction. So we simply go to the send button, click on that. Okay, so here we are going to be sending funds from the Bob and Wendy Building Company. As you can see, there's 5 coins in there, and we want to choose a person to send to. So it could be any of these people that are in the address book. Could be totally somebody different, as long as you have their public address that you can send to. So in this case, we're going to choose to send the coins from the building company to Wendy's grandma, and we're going to choose let's say 3 coins from the building company to send. So we're going to go ahead and make this transfer. Now here we need to authorize the transaction, and there's going to be some fees at the top here. So you have to keep in mind that whoever initiates this multi-signature transaction needs to have at least 20 XX coins as a deposit, plus the cost of the fees in order to transact this payment. Once you choose the person that's going to start this transaction, you just put in their password, and once that's done, you need to save this call data here. It says multi-sig call data. You need to save this data, and you will probably need to share it with the other parties because they're going to need this call data in order to sign the transaction for approval. Okay, so you would copy this call data and you would say copy it down onto a notes page, and I'm pasting the call data into my notes page, and I would then share this with the other parties so that they could use that when they go to sign the transaction. Okay, so I'm going to jump back. I'm going to jump back to the authorized transaction page. I've saved this call data, and now I'm going to sign the transaction. Okay, so it's going to hit sign and submit. It's going to go through, and now what you're going to see on the left side here, there's a little red tab that's popped up, and it's going to say multisig approvals pending, view pending approvals. So in order to do that, you need to go over to your little options tab, these three dots, open that up, and you're going to see what says multisig approvals. Okay, so this is what you're going to be looking for in the other accounts. Because Bob has obviously already signed this because he's the one that initiated it, he needs to now go and tell the other parties that this multisig approvals transaction is waiting. So they would then, I'll pop over to their accounts. So let's say Wendy hears about this transaction from Bob, and she then goes in and notices that, yeah, sure enough, there's a pending approval here, right? So she goes ahead and she clicks on that. Now you can see where it says the call data for final approval. This is where you would paste that data that Bob saved from his initial transaction when he initiated it, right? So she would need to have that call data. And so let's say she receives it from Bob and she takes it and pastes it in. Now that she's done that, she's able to approve the transaction, okay? And so it's fairly simple. You just go ahead and hit approve, and then she's going to need to put in her password. Because there's a transaction taking place, of course, she needs to finalize that by putting in her password, and there's going to be some fees applied to that. In a multi-signature transaction, there's always going to be more fees than doing a normal transaction. There's a lot more going on the blockchain, and therefore there's going to be more fees. So we've added the password, and we go ahead, sign and submit. Now you're going to see the funds are going to leave the building company wallet. As you can see, it went from 5 to 2. And we're going to jump over to Wendy's grandma, and we're going to notice that all of a sudden she has a higher account balance. And you can also see from her end that the account has dropped on the building company account balance. So that pretty much wraps it up for a basic multi-sig transaction. If you like this video, again, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updated on any future content that is added to my channel. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.